Are you at that age in life where you're thinking what worked in my 30s is no longer working in my 40s? Or I'm getting older and I keep hearing strength training has to be a part of my routine. I know my hormones are declining and those are directly correlated to muscle preservation. Or you're just ready to start a workout routine that works. Well, we're gonna talk about how to do strength training the smart way, using light weights versus using heavy weights, how soreness and sweat should not be an indicator for a good and effective workout. Also, muscle confusion. What's too much? First, let's talk about why strength training matters in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. It should absolutely be a part of your fitness routine because once you hit your late 30s, early 40s, hormonal changes, particularly those that happen in perimenopause and menopause, lead to muscle loss, reduced bone density, and a slower metabolism. And strength training can help offset these. Now, perimenopause is up to 10 years before menopause, so anywhere in your 30s or 40s. So muscle preservation is key starting in your 30s because after that, you lose 3 to 8% muscle mass each decade. And bone health, we know it's so important, but strength training strengthens the bones by encouraging them to grow denser. And then your metabolism. Muscle burns more calories than fat does at rest. This is also called your BMR or your basal metabolic rate. So the more muscle you have, by increasing your muscle, you keep your metabolism active. When we talk strength training, I feel like there's always a debate. Should we be lifting heavy weights or should we be lifting light weights? Well, exercise science is my formal education and I've studied it for 20 years and I love everything about it. So I'm going to give you the exercise science answer. And then I'm also going to give you an anecdotal answer because being in the field for 20 years, I've seen women of every age and every body type and done focus groups of over 1,000 women to determine what works best for everybody. So first, the exercise science answer. ACSM, or the American College of Sports Medicine, has guidelines for strength training that help women strike a balance between both lifting heavy and lifting light. According to ACSM, performing 6 to 20 repetitions per set is effective. And some other research actually even shows up to 30 repetitions can be effective. But here's the key. Whether you are lifting light or you are lifting heavy, you have to get to what I call effective reps. And what this is at the end of a set, the reps, short for repetitions, those last few reps should be challenging, but not impossible, because this is when changes happen to those muscle fibers. You've got to get to those effective reps. So whether you're lifting light or you're lifting heavy, those last few reps need to be effective. So for example, if you are doing bicep curls with a heavier dumbbell, you're doing 12 repetitions, 10, 11, and 12, they should be challenging, but not to the point where you lose form and they become impossible. If I were lifting lighter weights and doing that same exercise, I would need to use a faster tempo and do more repetitions to still get to those effective reps. So the effective reps is key. Now in the exercise science world, there's a tool called the 1RM or the 1 rep max. I don't usually like to get into the weeds because I don't want to complicate things for you, but I do want to share this with you. So we're going to use biceps curls again for an example. Your 1 rep max is the heaviest dumbbell that you can curl for 1 repetition without compromising your form. And then once you know your 1 rep max, lifting heavy lands between 65 and 85% of your 1 rep max. And then endurance or lifting light, bar is a great example, is typically 40 to 60% of your 1 rep max. But again, not trying to get into the weeds on this, but you need to get to those effective reps. If you're lifting light, you need to use a faster pace and do more repetitions. If you're lifting heavy, you need to get to those effective reps at the end, probably in a shorter amount of time. And now for the anecdotal advice, or what I found in the field. I have found the same to be very true. Lifting both light and lifting heavy provide results. Now, one thing we have seen is that sometimes lighter weights, just doing lighter weights, doesn't move the needle enough to kind of see the results that you want to see, but combining a couple heavy lifts each week, so 2 or 3 traditional strength training workouts combined with 1 or 2 bar type workouts. Those both complement each other and really move the needle. Next up, let's redefine fitness a little bit. So several years ago, I thought that the more extreme my workout was, the more sweat I left on the ground, the more dumbbells I tossed over my head and felt exhausted at the end of the workout, the more effective I thought the workout was. I mean, this is in the realm of when HIIT training came out onto the scene. Even though it had been around since 1996, it was really coming onto the scene, and not even just using HIIT training or high intensity interval training as cardio, but using it as a circuit workout. And what happened to me was I was burnt out. I was not seeing results. In fact, I was going in the opposite direction. And something that I had loved since watching my mom teach aerobics when I was little, I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to do it. So I quit. I quit for 4 weeks. I walked every single day for 4 weeks, and I was fascinated by the results. And studying exercise science, I had to figure out why this was. So I'm going to share that with you. Okay, so why sweat should not be the goal. We often think that the more sweat, the better. You can get an extremely effective strength session without breaking much of a sweat. Sweating is your body's way of regulating temperature. It's not your body's gauge of this was an effective workout or not an effective workout. Now, calorie burn, or caloric expenditure, or the energy that you use to do a workout, which you often find on a Fit Watch or a heart rate monitor, should not determine whether you do the workout, because a strength training workout is going to look different on your Fit Watch than a cardio only workout. But the benefits of strength training go far beyond immediate calorie burn. It's transforming your metabolic machinery. It's improving how your body stores and uses energy. It boosts your metabolic rate because you're building that lean tissue, which then keeps your basal metabolic rate or your metabolism humming. It enhances hormonal responses. So don't let sweat and heart rates give you the full picture on your workout. You cannot use those as a gauge for your workouts. Also, soreness shouldn't be something that you use to gauge whether it was an effective workout or not an effective workout. Feeling sore after a workout doesn't mean it was effective. It just means you did something your body isn't used to. It's not a direct indicator of muscle change. Soreness happens because of microscopic tears in your muscle fibers, totally normal and natural, which is part of the muscle repair process. And here's the thing, if you're always chasing soreness, that inflammation that happens when your body's repairing itself can become chronic. And then you'll be where I was several years ago, where I was full of inflammation and chronically stressed and chronically in fight or flight and not seeing results. Consistent progress is all about structuring your workouts, not how your muscles ache the next day. In fact, as you get stronger and more conditioned, you may experience less soreness while still building muscle and burning fat. And that's a good sign because it means your body is adapting. That's a good thing. Now, DOMS, which is delayed onset muscle soreness, peaks from 24 hours to 72 hours after a workout. Now, if you are newer to exercise, the first couple weeks, you're probably gonna have soreness and you're probably gonna have it often. But if you've been doing a strength training routine for a while, you don't necessarily want to let that soreness be your guide. You actually wanna clear that soreness. And the best way to clear out that soreness is not necessarily by doing another strength training workout. Even if you're following a structured schedule, the best way to clear that soreness is movement, walking. Walking gets the fluids moving and gets the blood flowing again, okay? There's a fine line of muscle soreness, and you simply don't want to let it be your guide. That's my whole point, is if you're sore, you're not like, oh, that was a really great workout. Just because you aren't sore doesn't mean it wasn't a good workout. All right, now that leads me into muscle confusion, because if you're doing muscle confusion, which is where you vary the exercises or do different exercises to keep seeing change, if you are doing too much muscle confusion, you're going to be in that consistent state of soreness and in that chronic state of inflammation. And that's not where you want to be. So muscle confusion, it's a term that you hear in the fitness industry. It's a strategy in strength training that involves frequently changing exercises or the type or the resistance that you use. It's used to prevent the body from adapting and hitting a plateau. But too much of it isn't a good thing. Occasional exercise variation is more effective because this allows you to get strong without overloading your body with novelty each week, which again leads to that excessive inflammation and probably fatigue. In our weekly schedule, we use exercise variation over frequent changes. So we vary the exercises with sliders or resistance bands or adding isometric holds or pulses as opposed to frequently changing the exercises. For example, glute push-ups, one of my favorite exercises. 1 week, we might drop set the glute push-ups. And what that means is you use a heavier weight and then immediately you drop to a lighter weight, and then you can do a third set with an even lighter weight. And then maybe the next week we add a resistance loop, and the following week we add some pulses. So variation is good, but you don't want to completely change the exercise often. Another reason is because the central nervous system needs time to adapt and recover. And constantly varying exercises can lead to nervous system fatigue. While muscles can fully recover from a single session of exercise given the proper rest, the nervous system might still be dealing with that cumulative stress. Now let's talk about putting together a strength training program that will be super effective and get you towards your goals and your better body composition. So number one, and probably I think the most important, is consistency. So for some reason, a lot of us think, oh, well, if I'm not doing 5 days a week, I'm not going to see results. And I am here to tell you that strength training 2 days a week, strength training 3 days a week, you will absolutely see results. And I want you to keep in mind that it's not about perfection. You're going to have weeks where you miss strength training, and that's totally fine. We're in this for the longevity. We're in this for the long-term results, not just those immediate results. So first and foremost, consistency. What can you commit to? Is that 2 30-minute workouts a week, or is that 4 30-minute workouts a week? Second, progressive overload. This is gradually increasing the resistance or the difficulty using variations of the same exercise for several weeks. I kind of talked about this earlier when I was talking about balanced muscle confusion, how you just vary those exercises. So A, it doesn't get boring, right? But B, you continue to see those results. So progressive overload, it can be done with changing the tempo of your exercise. That's how fast or slow you do it, especially in the eccentric or the lengthening phase of the exercise. You can drop set. You can superset. We're going to use biceps and triceps as an example. For a superset, you do biceps, and then right away you do triceps. So your biceps get rest while your triceps are going. So it's a great way to do strength training with little rest, and you'll also get some cardiovascular benefits from it. While you're using progressive overload, again, you've got to get to those effective reps, those last few reps that are challenging but not impossible. And number 3 is volume, or how many sets of each muscle group are you going to be doing each week? Well, the research shows that 5 to 10 sets per week will be providing change. So just how does that line up in your week? Well, I can tell you from experience, what we found is that 30 to 35 minute workouts, whether you do it 2, 3, or 4 times a week, can be very, very beneficial in providing change. Now, what that might mean is that you do 5 sets of triceps if you are doing the 2 times per week schedule. If you're doing the 4 times per week schedule, that might mean that you're closer to those 8 or 10 repetitions each week. And it's really important, not just, okay, I'm just going to do 5 to 10 sets, but it's really important that, again, you base it on your consistency. As we age, our hormones are decreasing and our muscle is decreasing. So maybe after menopause, you might need to stick with the 4 times a week of strength training. It's a lot harder to build and retain muscle after menopause, but that's in a completely different show. I'm just giving you the general guidelines. So volume, 5 to 10 sets per week per muscle group will give you benefits. And that leads us to number 4, which is cardio or aerobic training. Now, when we think aerobic training, a lot of us think, oh my gosh, I've got to do that HIIT cardio or that high intensity interval training, or I've got to run, or I've got to do this. I'm going to make it easy for you. Walking is a game changer. Getting in your daily steps is a game changer. And what ACSM recommends is that you accumulate at least 150 minutes of moderate cardio each week. Don't overcomplicate this word moderate. The way I like to say is that when you're walking, it should be between a leisure walk and, oh my gosh, I'm late to pick up my kids. Otherwise, don't overcomplicate it past that. Now, if you do enjoy running and you do enjoy HIIT cardio, you can do a combination of walking and that more vigorous cardio up to like 75 minutes a week. In our weekly schedule, we actually offer all of the options, and you will find what works best for you, what works best for your body, and what works best for your consistency and time schedule. You will find that. And if you need help getting to that point, I recommend you start with our 3 times per week strength training schedule in our weekly schedule, and then you add your daily steps. 2 weeks, you will never want to quit. All right, and finally, number 5, recovery. Everyone needs to give a muscle group 36 to 48 hours rest before training it again. When muscles undergo the stress from strength training, again, they experience those micro tears, and your body brings in all these nutrients and some inflammation to help the body repair and strengthen those muscle fibers. And if you're not giving that muscle group recovery, you're going to have chronic inflammation and cell swelling, which is not where you want to be. So not only should you make sure you're not training a muscle group 2 days in a row, recovery weeks can also be super, super beneficial. And this is what I found when I quit exercise, right? And when I quit exercise for 4 weeks, I walked for 4 weeks, and I was fascinated. I mean, my hips hurt and my knees hurt, because that is always my indicator, like, okay, I got to get back to strength training. But walking, it was so beneficial. So for me now, and this is also based on research, I will do 5 to 6 weeks of strength training and my daily walking. Sometimes I run once a week, and then I will take 2 weeks off. During those 2 weeks of recovery, I'm not sedentary. I'm walking. I'm probably getting more daily steps than I do when I do strength training, anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes a day. And then it's continuous and non-continuous steps really count towards that. I'm doing stretching. I sit in the car a lot. I sit behind the desk a lot, so I'm doing stretching. And then I'm doing deep breathing to really help reduce stress. So recovery is super important, not only, back to back in your week of strength training, but also those recovery weeks. They can be so beneficial. So if you're in your 40s like myself, and maybe you've hit a plateau, maybe you're discouraged by exercise, maybe you're no longer seeing results, I would love to help, because the last thing we want for exercise to be is something that is discouraging. You should feel good when you work out. You should feel good after your workout. You should feel restored and replenished within an hour or two, not completely depleted like the workouts I was doing 5 and 6 years ago. So I'm here to help. I promise you that if you do strength training 3 days a week and you walk daily, 2 weeks, you will never want to quit. Now, below in the show notes, I'm not only going to include all of the research that we provided in the show, I'm also going to give you a way to contact us, as well as a 7-day free trial into our weekly schedule.